In today's video, we're going to install an AIM light force clutch slave cylinder on a Harley Davidson with a hydraulic clutch system. And at the end of the video, after the install, I'm actually going to take you out. I'm going to test ride and review it, do some basic police motorcycle drills, and yeah, I'll let you know what I think about it, so stick around. Welcome back, Bikeaholics. Ryan Urlacher here, lawabidingbiker.com. I always thank you, that's right, you, for checking back in. So just a couple things before we get installing. One of the questions you may have is, why would I want to install an AIM light force slave clutch cylinder on my Harley Davidson with hydraulic clutch? Well, there's a couple different reasons. Number one is, if you've ever been in stop and go traffic or you're clutching in and out a lot, we all know that you can get hand fatigue with the Harley clutch lever. It's not the easiest to pull. And so putting this slave cylinder on makes it very easy to pull the clutch in and out. It's really effortless, and you can get rid of some of that hand fatigue. The second reason is gray area or friction zone, and that's basically your clutch is not all the way engaged or disengaged and you're kind of slipping it. That tends to be right off the grip instead of way out, which can cause hand fatigue for those low speed maneuvers, or if you are in stop and go traffic, it's kind of in that better place where it's right off your grip. And then number three, dealing with the gray area or friction zone, it seems to be wider. And basically what that means is, if you are doing low speed maneuvers or riding, is you can kind of have a little bit more room for error because the gray area is wider and you're not in and out of it so quick. Hopefully that makes sense to you, but those are some of the reasons that you'd want to install one of these units on your bike. So this unit is good for 2014 to 2020 Harley models with hydraulic clutch. Now 2017 to 2020, you're just going to replace the slave cylinder. 2014 to 2016, you're going to replace the slave cylinder along with the master cylinder, but don't worry about it because when you order, everything you need comes in the kit. And speaking of ordering, if you appreciate this video and all the content we put out on this channel to help educate, entertain, and inspire as many bikers as we can worldwide, you can purchase this right from the Law Abiding Biker store. I will link to it in the description below. We really appreciate your support, and it definitely helps keep the lights on here at this channel. And have no fear, with this very detailed tutorial video, you'll be able to do this in your very own shop or garage. There's no specialty tools required. No reason to pay a dealership to install this slave cylinder. And with that said, what do you say we get wrenching? But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and bell icon. Every time those are hit, another biker joins the revolution, and we would love to have you be part of it. Oh, and don't forget, at the end of the video, I'm actually going to do some basic police motorcycle drills and test and review this bad boy and let you know what I think about it. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, he's got a 3/16 hex head. There's two bolts. He's going to move in and start loosening those on the transmission cover. There's one on the right side there and the left side, and he's going to get those backed out. And he's moving over to the left side there, and he's going to get that one loosened. And now you can back these all the way out. And he's got his left one out there and just finishing up with the right side. We're going to try to take that side cover off. And this is what we wanted to show you, is that it's going to be very difficult. You probably won't be able to get that out of there. We're going to have to loosen the exhaust up to give us some play to get that side transmission cover off. All right, so on this bike, he's going to remove the seat here because we've got some extra lighting on the back that we're going to have to unplug. That he took off is a rack seat bolt. You can do it with your thumbs, and that makes it super simple in the Law Abiding Biker store. I will link to it in the description below. With that, he can just pull up on the back and pull that seat off. And he's got a heated seat, so he's just got to, you may not have any of this, but we do. And he's just going to push on the tab and pull that off, get his seat out of the way. And he's just going to unplug some of his rear lighting so he can get his right side saddlebag off there. Again, you may or may not have extra lighting on the rear of your bike. You may not need to do that. All right, now he's just going to remove his saddlebag there, his right side saddlebag. He's just got the stock bolts on there, the ratcheting kind. We mostly use the Rack saddlebag safety bolts. They're available in the Law Abiding Biker store. They're a lot more secure and super easy to get on and off. With that, he can get that saddlebag up and out of the way. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, he's got a 5/16 nut driver there, and he's just going to get up in there, and you got to find your clamps, all your heat shield clamp bolts, and start loosening all of those. We're going to have to remove the front heat shields that go up to the jugs there because we need access to the bolts up in there. We'll show you as we get further into this project, but that's what he's going to do right now, is just find all those and start loosening them up. And as you can see, he's just loosening and working on that rear heat shield. All right, moving in on his front heat shields there. Again, just finding those clamp bolts. And for the front ones, we're going to have to take them all the way off. Oh, real quick, we'll get right back into the video. If you haven't taken a chance to listen to the Law Abiding Biker podcast, make sure you do so, because we talk about things like this and in a lot more detail, and we have a lot of fun doing it. You can listen to it on any major podcast platform. All right, let's get back at it. Okay, and with those front heat shield clamps removed, you can completely remove that heat shield. And we'll do that for the front one too. Okay, and so on the front one here, it's all loose. We're just gonna pull it back. You don't have to take it all the way off because we'd have to probably remove our floorboards. We just want it back so that we can get access to the bolts that bolt the exhaust into the headers, and we should have access now to all of those. All right, and so there's a clamp that goes around your exhaust. 9/16 socket's what he's got there, and he's gonna loosen that. We're gonna have to get that clamp off of there so that we can swing this exhaust out and away from the transmission cover there. That's what we're doing here, just loosen everything so we can get that cover off there. And he's just gonna back that nut off there. And we're gonna work on the rear header here, and up in there where they connect are 2 bolts, and I'll get you a closer shot here. And we've got 2 bolts up in there with a flange, and he's gonna point to them. Those are 1/2 inch. And those are the ones that we're gonna work on loosening with our socket and extension. All right, so that's what he's doing, is he's just getting up there, and he's gonna get those loosened, and we're gonna loosen them quite a ways to try to get as much swing and play on this exhaust system as we can. So just get both of those loosened up real good. All right, and you can see his finger up in there. That's the front header, and it's the same. It's got 2 1/2-inch nuts up in there on studs and that flange. And you just got to use different tools to get up in there. On one of them, we'll just be able to use an extension and a socket. And then you'll see on the other side, we'll have to use just a box end wrench. We'll get started on this. And you can see he's got his 1/2-inch socket on a nice long extension there. For one of those, he's just getting up in there, and he's going to loosen that as much as he can there. That's that front header he's working on. All right, and he's working on this front one, and 1/2-inch wrench is probably all you're going to get on that one, and just a little 1/4 turn at a time there. And you can see to get up in there, he moved over to the left side of the bike here to get at that one. Makes it just a little bit easier with that box end wrench. Okay, and with his 9/16 socket there, he's just going to work on the crossover clamp there and loosen that up, because we're going to want that pipe to pull away from that crossover. Again, to get the swing we need here. So he'll just loosen that up real good. All right, and with a 1/2-inch socket, he's just got the 2 on the right rear exhaust here on the muffler. He's gonna back those all the way out. They've just got a nut and a washer on them. All right, and so we should have enough swing now, and you can see they're working together there to try to swing the exhaust system out to get enough play so that we can get that side transmission cover off there. And that's what Lurch is working on. Looks like we got enough play there to get it off. All right, and with the 7/16 wrench there, he's gonna break loose his clutch line going into the slave cylinder there. And make sure you have a bowl below it, because as you can see, it's leaking. We put a bowl down below. And so the reason we did that first is because that gives you the ability to really torque on that and get it loose. Once we take the slave cylinder off, it'll be hard to get that off. All right, and with the 3/16 hex head, he's gonna move in and start removing the bolts on the slave cylinder there. And there's 3 of them. And the bottom one is a little bit of a bear to get to. He's gonna use an L-style hex head wrench there. And he got it broke loose there. And he'll just work on backing that one out. He got that bottom one out, and now he's just going to work on backing these two top ones the rest of the way out. And that releases our slave cylinder there. And now that that main line is loose, he's going to go ahead and get that backed out with his fingers there. Just get it loosened the rest of the way so you can get that slave cylinder all the way off. And just one note before you remove anything, just note that rubber line guide in there and the way it's situated. You'll want to put that back in the same exact way when we put the new slave cylinder on. And remember, with this clutch system, we're using brake fluid. And so just keep things clean. Make sure you don't get it on your paint. It can peel paint. And he's just cleaning everything up in there. Just check your bolt holes there. Make sure there's no debris in them. And your seating surface there where you're going to put the slave cylinder. Just clean it up real nice with a rag. All right, and just real quick, we'll get right back into your video. As you can imagine, a lot of man hours and expenses go into keeping this channel going strong. There is a way you can support us by becoming a patron member. I will link to it in the description below. By becoming a member, there are benefits such as t-shirts and stickers. You get access to the private Facebook group, which is a troll-free zone. It is nothing but bikers helping bikers in there. You get access to live video broadcasts and chat, podcasts early, premium videos up on request, and access to ride, meetup, and events. All right, let's get back into your video. All right, so you can see in his left hand is our AIM Light Force slave cylinder that we're going to put on, and he's just going to start finger starting that clutch line into it. That is the new slave cylinder we're going to put on. And we'll wait to tighten that line down all the way till we get the slave cylinder on there. That'll give us the, so we can torque it down real good. All right, so note on the back of the AIM Light Force slave cylinder is a little hole. Well, that rod on the other side on the transmission has to fit into there, and so you might have to wiggle it around. You're going to see him. He's going to start seating this into place, and he may have to wiggle it around to get everything to seat up just right. Now he's just lining up the slave cylinder and the bolt holes there, and it looks like he got it there, and he's got his bolt holes lined up. You can start finger starting the 3 bolts. And he's reusing those stock bolts, and he's going in with that bottom one there, and you may have to use your wrench. It's kind of hard to get in there with your fingers to get that started. Just make sure you don't cross thread it. All right, now he's got them all tightened down pretty good. He's going to go in with this 3/16 hex head on an extension there, and if you want torque specs and you're going to use a torque wrench, it is 8 to 10 foot-pounds. But it looks like Squid's got it down just right. All right, with the 7/16 wrench there, he's going to tighten his main clutch line going into the slave cylinder. Again, make sure that rubber line guide is lined up the same as it was before. All right, and if you have a 14 to 16 bike, you're going to have to replace your clutch master cylinder with an upgraded model. And he's going to start taking this off with a 3/16 hex head. Normally those would be Torx T27, the stock bolts, but as you can see, we have a Cero 3D drink holder on there. We love them, especially for our long travels. They are available in the Law Abiding Biker store, and I'll link to those in the description below, but that's why we're going to take that off instead of the stock Torx T27 bolts. And he's just finishing up there with his fingers, and he's supporting the master cylinder with the clutch handle with his other hand. And once you do that, it is free. You take that half clamp off the front, and that frees everything up. And you can see there's the line, and you just take that bolt off, and it's going to leak brake fluid because that's what we're using. So make sure you have rags down, and you'll just, your kit will come with a new master cylinder and clutch handle, and you just bolt that line right back on, make sure it seals up. And then you'll top your reservoir back off. You'll put it back on, top your reservoir off, and you'll bleed it. You'll bleed the system just like we're going to show you how to bleed the system a little bit later in this video. All right, so we're going to have to bleed the clutch system now. So over on the left side of the bike here, we're going to take the cap off the master cylinder. And you just got a Phillips screwdriver there. There's 2 of them there. And we wrapped a rag around everything again. You don't want to get this .4 brake fluid is what you're using. You don't want to get it on any of your paint. And he'll get that cover off of there. That way we can fill it as we're bleeding. And he'll finish by taking that rubber piece out of there. That exposes it so we can fill it. Okay, so the way this goes is Lurch is down here with a brake bleeder or clutch bleeder, and we're using the Mighty Vac for this project, but I'll link to it in the description below. We also sell Bike Masters brake bleeders in the Law Abiding Biker store. I'll also link to those. They work just as well. And with a 10mm wrench, Lurch has that on the pet cock, and that is a pneumatic brake bleeder, so it's hooked to an air line. And when he loosens that, he can go ahead and turn the air on and start sucking fluid through that line. At the same time, Squid is making sure that the reservoir does not go dry, and he's keeping it topped off, and they're just working in tandem there. Just don't let it go dry or you'll add more air to the system. He'll just keep that topped off up there. That's his job. And they're still just working together. Squid keeping the reservoir full, and Lurch sucking the fluid through the system there. And it's starting to look pretty good, come out pretty solid. And he's just getting his reservoir cap back on there, as you can see. We've got everything topped off and everything's bled. All right, and just we got everything tightened down. Just make sure you put your rubber cap back on your bleeder valve there. And he's gonna go ahead and drop his side cover, his transmission cover, back in place there. And he'll go back in with his bolts there and get those fingers started, one on each side. And he'll go in with his 3/16 hex head and get both of these snugged down. Got those snugged down, we'll get our exhaust back in place here. All right, so they're just working together here to get this exhaust back in place. He's trying to get those two studs back up in the plate there, while Lurch is up front helping him line things up. And he's just getting his two bolts started there on the back of the muffler. All right, with his 1/2-inch socket there, he's going up. And before we tighten anything down on the exhaust, we're gonna work on the head bolts. Remember, there's 2 bolts on that head pipe on both front and back. And the way you want to tighten those is don't just do one side and then the other side. You can see them switching back and forth. And that's because we want to make sure that flange goes down evenly and crushes that crush washer. So you want nice even pressure as you're going down, and then don't over tighten them. You can snap those studs off. They seal up real easy, so just get them snug. And then we're going to do that to the front head now. All right, and going back up with his 9/16 to that crossover clamp nut, and he'll get that snugged back down. And now he's going to get this nut finger started on this center support bracket, and he'll go up with his 1/2-inch socket and get this snugged down. All right, now he can get these 2 rear ones tightened up with his 1/2-inch socket on top of his muffler here. All right, now he's just going back on with his heat shields, getting everything back in place there. All right, now he's just going through and with his nut driver getting the heat shield clamps all the way around tightened down. And you just barely want to snug your clamps because when your exhaust heats up, it expands and it'll snap them. So just get them a little snug. That's what he's working on now. And he's just finishing up there, getting his last clamps tightened up on those heat shields. All right, and just going back on with his saddlebag there, getting that lined up, put in place. And he'll just get both bolts tightened back down there and plug anything in that needs to be plugged back in, like his heated seat. He'll slide that back into place. That front first, it's got that tongue, slide it up underneath there. And then he can put his rack extended thumb bolt back down in there, making it really easy to get your seat on and off. Again, anything we talked about, links are in the description below.
So the guys over at Law Abiding Biker Media just installed a AIM light force clutch cylinder on my Ultra Limited, and it is freaking amazing. The grip is so much less effort needed I can do turns that I couldn't do before. I just rode for a couple miles, and I have nothing bad to say about it. It's an awesome product. Highly recommended.
All right, so we just installed a AIM light force clutch slave cylinder on this 2020 Ultra Limited, and essentially it is supposed to make the pull a lot less, so it's supposed to help with hand fatigue. It's also supposed to bring that gray area, that friction zone, whatever you want to call it, in so it's just off the handle. So I'm going to go ahead and test it out and do some police drills here in the parking lot, just some basic drills and figure eights, and kind of let you know as and talk you through it as I'm going through it and what I think of it. Alright, so we'll go out here and I'm just going to get into a easy bar lock, and I can tell you right off the bat that it's the gray areas, I'm just getting used to this clutch a little bit. Yeah, it is definitely in closer off the grip, and I'll bring it back around. We'll go into a bar lock the other way. It seems like it's closer to off the grip, the friction zone. We're in a full bar lock here. Takes a little getting used to because I'm used to the regular clutches, but it is definitely less hand fatigue for sure. It is really, really easy to hold in that friction zone. We'll just go out here and use some of these painted lines to see if we can do a few drills here. And we'll go into a full bar lock. We'll kind of use these lines as cones. Back into a bar lock. I can definitely see if you were training all day, like I often do, that it would definitely help with hand fatigue. It's easy to come in and out of the gray area. I can't believe how light it is to pull it in. I mean, it feels a little unreal and not what you're used to with a Harley. Or back into a bar lock. Now that I'm getting used to this, I can get in that bar lock real easy. We'll go back in here and boom, bar lock. So all in all, I'm very, very impressed. Nice addition to a bike for the price, especially I think somebody, you know, who gets hand fatigue a lot, or maybe shorter hands, or somebody who just wants a little bit less pull and that gray area a little bit closer to off the handle. But all in all, I like it a lot, and we will link to it if you're interested in the description below. And of course, we did a full install video on it for you guys if you're interested in getting hooked up with the AIM Light Force clutch slave cylinder.
All right, your journey's not done on the channel. I'm popping a couple videos on the screen here for you. Hopefully something useful or entertaining. Heck, maybe both. At any rate, when you're done watching videos, make sure you get out there and ride every chance you get, Bikeaholics. Peace.